remember it like it was yesterday. It was early 2020, and a popular Black travel influencer invited folks to participate in a visualization session with another person who happened to live in Spain. This was 2020. So, seeing this influencer in a West African country, hosting us with another guest from Spain, that was, it was pretty new for those of us who weren't used to this Zoom life that we've all become accustomed to. I participated in the session primarily because I was inspired by her life. I wasn't sure what to expect. I just wanted to hear and see her because I wanted to travel the world like she did. So, if you heard the first episode of the podcast, you heard me explain that traveling the world has always been a long held desire of mine, a desire I am now able to put into action and have activated because I became an entrepreneur that runs a work from anywhere business. But back to my point. It was pretty early into the live event that her guest started to guide us through a visualization exercise. Here's what she asked us to do. She asked us to close our eyes and visualize our perfect morning. She asked us to visualize exactly where we want to be for that perfect morning, what the breeze may have felt like. Was it raining or was it sunny? What were the smells? What were some of the other things that help us really, visualize this experience? All the details that could really make us feel the vision. I immediately, started visualizing it. And I remember it was one of the most eye opening experiences I'd ever had because for the first time, I thought about what my life could look like, how each day could start. And I still have that vision to this very day. What made that visualization exercise even more poignant and even more, even feel more real, for lack of a better way of describing it, was because just the year before in 2019, I was actually at a destination that was very similar to that visualization. Quite frankly, it probably helped inform the vision that I had. And so I just wanted to start there to at least explain my first experience. I remember the first time I did this. It's the Age Has No Limit podcast. We're here to show and prove that your age shouldn't prevent you from designing and living the life you want. I'm your host, Patrice Davis. Let's get started. So, let me welcome you to the Age Has No Limit podcast. My name is Patrice Davis, and I created the podcast because I wanted to inspire people that were 40 years and older to pursue the life of their dreams and to really, join our community, what I call our No Limits tribe. Because whether you are learning a new skill or refining a buried and long ignored talent, whether you're living a life of solace and calm after giving yourself to a demanding career or traveling the world, starting a business, reintroducing yourself to yourself, or if you're an empty nester or soon to be one, or finally unboxing yourself from the confines of what others expect from you. Each episode of the podcast is, created to inspire you and serve as an example of the life you can live. Each episode, whether it's a solo episode hosted by yours truly or one where we have a guest describes how they've been able to live a life without limits. The idea is to inspire, motivate you, make you look at life differently if you'd like, and make you want to try something different. So this second episode, is about your first time and your first time actually participating in or having, a visualization experience. So your first time really maybe could be today or tomorrow. Hopefully after this episode, you'll be inspired to give it a try. If this is your first time, I'd like for you, to really think through how this could be, a beneficial exercise for you. Maybe thinking about how your life would look like, what it could look like, what would you be doing, how would you start and end each day, and how that may be different from what you're doing now, and how you can actually achieve that in the future. So I do want to say I'm no visualization expert. I just happen to be someone who actually practices visualization as a business owner, as and just as a person who has several, long and midterm goals that she wants to put into action. Visualization helps me refine those goals. And it helps me refine the steps to take to achieve those goals, and it helps it keep that vision very, very clear in my mind. So, to prepare for this episode, though, I really want to dig a little deeper into visualization, the purpose of it, and some of the expected outcomes. So, why don't we first start by defining what visualization is? And quite simply, visualization is the practice of imagining what you want to achieve in the future as if it were true today. In many instances, you can actually activate all five senses into that visualization exercise to make it more real, or to just give it a little bit more heft, so to speak. It's something that it actually, you feel it even more because you've thought about what, again, the smells, the taste, the what you're seeing, what you're experiencing, what you're feeling. So what you're really also doing is directing your subconscious to be aware of the end goal you have in mind. You're training your brain to respond as if the outcome was true. I do also want to address those folks out there that think we're going to go down the road of woo woo. This isn't about the woo woo of all the things that you've heard. We're not going to talk about, manifestation or the law of attraction, even though I do believe in those practices. I really want to focus and focus on visualization because I think it's something that we all can agree is something that's beneficial when you really sit and think about the vision that you have for your life and the ways that you can actually achieve that vision. Another thing we also need to keep in mind is that elite athletes do this. They envision themselves winning the game. Michael Phelps may envision himself actually winning the swim meet. LeBron James uses visualization. Quite a few celebrities that we know of use visualization, Oprah Winfrey being one of them. We also know that a lot of top executives in some of these very large companies, very successful people, successful entrepreneurs, use visualization as a way to, again, really think and be very, very, very clear about their goals. As a matter of fact, stroke victims actually use the mental exercise of visualization, interestingly, to activate neuroplasticity. Doctors and other scientists understand the importance of using visualization. And so, what I'm imploring and asking you to do is think about how you can use it in your life to actually live a life of no limits, right? That's the name of this podcast. That's what I'd like to encourage more of us to do. And so visualization is one of the ways to help us really refine what that life of no limit looks like. So we're going to dig a little bit deeper, however. So according to an article I read, there are actually two types of visualization techniques. One is outcome visualization, where you're envisioning your desired future outcome. And another technique is what they call process visualization, where you're visualizing every step towards that outcome. Now, imagine combining the two. According to this article, the combination of the two is actually even more potent, for lack of a better word. You're not only visualizing the big picture, the big goal you want to achieve, you're actually visualizing each step that it takes. Maybe not every step, but the steps that it takes, the actual process it will take to achieve that goal. Before we move on to the 5 steps that you can take to actually begin a visualization practice, and that's how we're going to end this episode, I want us to think about really how this digital overload that we're all having to contend with, right? We have a news cycle that's going at it's the top speed, just constantly throwing sensationalized news at us. We have distractions at an all-time high. We have our phones, we have our laptops, we have so many things coming at us that are just information overload. Now, another thing to consider is that the National Institutes of Health and has actually done studies on the impact all of this distraction is having on not just young people, but all of us at different ages, right? There's actually an interesting article in a publication called The Frontiers of Psychology that talks quite a bit about the impact of these distractions from social media and other areas that are having on our lives. As a matter of fact, many of you are probably aware of the whistleblower from a certain social media network, which I will not name, who actually, leaked thousands of documents. She wanted to prove to the world. She actually, I believe, if I remember correctly, actually, there was a congressional hearing where she spoke about the fact that many of the senior executives at this company were very aware of the addictive nature of the tools that they were using. Because remember, we have to remember that these tools are built so that we stay on the screen, because the more eyeballs are on the screen, the more advertisers they can, of course, attract, because they can, of course, say to advertisers, hey, here are, 500 million people who are on our screens, every day, many of them for an hour, hour and a half. Now, imagine you're an advertiser. That's like your dream, to be able to be in front of so many people. And so, these people actually created these applications to be addictive. You're probably wondering why I'm going down this road. I'm going down this road because I want to, reinforce the importance of really using that quiet time, that visualization, to think through before we become distracted, or maybe at the end of the day after we've been distracted, to really think about what we want to achieve in our lives. And even though I just described for the past minute all of these distractions that are coming at us, if you once you get to know me, or for those of you who already know me because maybe we've done business together, maybe you're in my coaching program, maybe you've seen me host a webinar or in a podcast, you know that I'm very solutions oriented. So even though I know that these distractions are coming at us, my focus is, okay, well, how can I still thrive in in a society that has so many distractions? And one of the ways to thrive is to determine exactly, in a very focused and intentional way, what it is I want to achieve, whether that's with my business, whether that's, other goals that I have. And one of the ways to do that is through visualization. I want to also give us an opportunity to think about how the chance to think, imagine, and really add mental pictures can help us really get clear about what we want. As a matter of fact, I was reading this article in a publication called Better Up that explained that creative visualization can trigger a process called selective attention. The example they gave, which I thought was a really great example, is imagine you buy a new car, right? And the car is a Honda Accord. All of a sudden, you start to see other Honda Accords on the road. You never noticed Honda Accords before. You're seeing them, the various styles, the different colors, the different ages of those various Honda Accords, because again, you've triggered that selective attention. That's what visualization can do for you. It basically can help you really give selective attention to what you want to achieve. So, and we all know that when you focus on and take deliberate steps towards achieving, it's more likely to become a reality. I don't want us to be I am not one of those people that believes that if you just think it, it becomes real. I believe if you think it and then take actions to achieve it, then it's more likely to become real. So I'm going to give you another example. This is just something I remember happening. And as a result of this happening, and as a result of the thought patterns that allowed this to happen, I've been very deliberate in changing my thought patterns. This is a very interesting example. As a mom of three children, of course, as we know, as parents, many times you're, shuttling them from here to there. They have after school activities. So I was a working mother for much of their lives, not all of it. I did explain that there were some years where I decided to work part-time so that I could be more available for them. But once I became a working mother again, and I came home from work and I had to shuttle them from here to there, and I was busy just like many of you out there who may be working parents, I remember thinking earlier in the day, I'm going to have an accident. And I remember thinking it, three or four other times. And of course, once you know it, I ended up having an accident. Thankfully, no one was hurt. There was very little damage to the car. But I remember thinking to myself, I had the thought, and then I kept reinforcing the thought several times that day. And as a result, whenever I have that thought anymore, I live in a city that's well known to, a lot of traffic on the road. So things can happen. But whenever I have that thought, what I tell myself immediately is, I'm not going to have an accident. I'm going to, and what that does is it triggers it triggers almost a deeper sense of focus on my driving, on my defensive driving, because I've made up my mind I'm not going to have an accident. And as a result, I'm much more focused on driving. I'm going to make sure I'm not as distracted. I'm going to really watch those folks around me to avoid an accident happening. So that's an example, may not be the best example of me realizing the power of the thought, right? And how the thought can sometimes reinforce an action. Some would say, again, you were predicting something. In my mind, it was something that happened, and as a result I changed my thinking to avoid it from happening. All right, so what are some of the benefits of visualization? So I'll just give you three. So according to scientists, there are three benefits, right? Number one, of course, it builds self-confidence. It forces you, not forces, but it gives you an opportunity to have a mental rehearsal of your outcome before you actually take action. And it helps to reduce anxiety. I remember, again, in 2020, with everything that was happening, I visualized, some of the outcomes that I wanted as a very new business owner who had no prospects, right? No clients, because it was 2020. A lot of things were happening. But I was very, very firm in my conviction that this business was going to, take off, and I was going to get the outcome that I wanted, which was to, at that time, at a small goal, which was to, of course, earn what I needed to be able to travel the world, and work from anywhere. Now, of course, my goals and vision are much bigger and much clearer, and thankfully, I've been able to achieve those goals. So, why am I harping on about visualization? Because a life with no limit starts with imagining what that life looks like. So it's really being intentional about that imagination. That's really the connection between, the it's the connection between the focus of this show, the vision for this show, and of course the name of the podcast, Age Has No Limit. Your visualization, the things that you want to achieve, has no limit, right? I mean, so a little later in the show, what I really, like I said, want to do is really make sure that we're walking through the 5 steps for you to get started if you haven't already started. If you already have, I'd love to hear from you. Send me an email, send me a note saying, hey, I've been visualizing. You can drop a couple of comments. I've been visualizing for 5 years, and as a result, I've seen this happen in my life and this happened in my life. I really, really would love to get your comments on that. So a bit back to my experience with visualization, before we jump into the 5 steps. Before, I started in March of 2020, after learning about something called savers. And for those of you who've read the book called The Miracle Morning, I don't remember the name of the author, but it's The Miracle Morning for Entrepreneurs. I'm not talking about the regular Miracle Morning. I haven't read that. I specifically read Miracle Morning for Entrepreneurs. The author walks you through something called the savers. Savers stands for S for silence, A for affirmations, V for visualization, E for exercise, R for reading, and S for scribing. And the author is a proponent of combining all 6 items or 6 actions in your life in your morning, because it jumpstarts your morning, jumpstarts your thinking, jumpstarts your intellect, jumpstarts your body, jumpstarts even your spiritual practice, right? And so, as a result of doing the savers, visualization was a part of that. I'm also currently actually in a program. It's this 365 days of fire. Shout out to the people that are in the fire movement. That was started by the couple of Our Rich Journey. They're a couple on YouTube. You guys can look them up. Very very popular couple. They've been really sharing a lot of financial education, and they actually promote the fire movement, and that's what they use to retire at a collective age or an average age of 40. And so I'm in their program. As I mentioned, one of the first activities they wanted us to do was to write out our vision. The idea is to write the vision so that you can go back and look and see how much of that vision you've actually been able to achieve. And that vision is very similar to the vision, my first visualization exercise, and very similar to a lot of the things that are actually included in my exercises on a daily basis. Another vision activity was just done, a few days ago. I actually planned on doing a completely different topic for the second episode of the podcast, but I realized that introducing, reintroducing, or affirming for those of us who have been using visualization is a great way to help folks think outside the box. You know, the first episode of the podcast was about unboxing yourself. Okay, well, as you're unboxing yourself, what are you unboxing yourself to achieve? And, visualizing helps you be much more clear about what it is you want to achieve, what you want, what your goals are, how you want to redesign your life, right? So, and I've just been doing it more consistently as a business owner to achieve a certain number of goals. So I'm, again, that practice and the fact that I've been doing it more consistently and realizing just how much more consistently I've been doing it, and also realizing, the clarity and the steps that I've been taking to achieve some of my goals. I decided that this was just a really great topic. So let's now talk about the 5 steps that you can take to actually begin your first visualization exercise. They're very practical. And so that's why when I found this online, I said, well, this is a really great way to make it very simple. Again, remove the woo woo. This isn't, we're going to remove the woo woo for those of you who don't believe in the woo woo. And quite frankly, as I said before, I really am one of those folks that believe that the way you think and what you think about can create the outcome you have. And if you want to call that woo woo, that's okay with me. So here we are. So the first step to actually begin your first visualization exercise, and I would love for some of you guys, and for all of you really, if you haven't done this, to the first step is to write out what you want your life to look like, how you plan on redesigning your life in very clear detail. Where do you want to live? Why do you want to live there? What do you want to experience when you're there? What actually it takes to actually do that? If you envision it, what will you feel while you're there? Do you imagine the breeze, blowing through your hair as you are maybe, taking a trek through, I don't know, through the Amazon or whatever it is that you may be trying to accomplish. What do you smell? What do you hear? And what do you feel? What do the trees feel like? Just really thinking through that vision and to actually write all of that out in detail, because it helps you to be very, very clear about it. And you can actually, of course, go back and look at what you've written. The second step is to really feel it. Sit and really think about and see what that feels like for you. So, for example, when I'm actually in the middle of a visualization exercise, I allow myself to feel either calm or assuredness or confident or gratitude or a sense of appreciation. I allow myself to feel all of those things so that I can it becomes more real. So the feeling of it is also really important. The third thing I'd like you to do is really take action every day towards the outcomes. As I said before, I do believe that you have to take action. It's not just about the thinking, it's about the actual doing. Now, some would say, well, why not just take the action? Why do you need to start with the visualization? Visualization, as I made a point to someone the other day, this was my point, that when you're visualizing what you want to achieve, the actions that you take are going to be much more purposeful, and you're probably going to be more strategic. They're going to probably, there are probably fewer of those actions that you have to take. So rather than 20 actions to achieve a particular goal, you're doing a lot of busy work. Maybe it's 5 to get to that actual goal because you've thought about what it actually takes. And then maybe you're also thinking ahead about the things to avoid. What are those traps that could derail you from your goal or derail you from that life or the redesigned life that you have? So visualization helps you with that as well. The fifth thing is, of course, to make time to visualize. I'm not going to say visualize 3 times a day, for morning, noon, and night, and do it for 10 minutes each. The only thing I ask you to do is do it each day at a time that's best for you and to do it consistently. That's the only thing that I'm going to recommend that you do. And of course, as I said before, you'll notice that visualization will actually refine your actions. So we're approaching the end of this, our second episode of the Age Has No Limit podcast. And I'm hoping that this particular episode for those of you who have never done visualization, inspires you to give it a try, and see if it helps you with that unboxing process that we talked about with the last episode. For those of you who are doubters out there, I mean, I can, we've got to honor your feelings and honor your opinions. So, but I do want you to imagine the power of really being very clear about the vision that one has for your life. If you take away the word visualization and just call it something else that feels better for you, or even just imagine the fun of thinking of what your perfect day looks like. Right? Just that's fun. Just thinking, okay, well, it would start this way, and then I'd get up, and then I would have a cup of tea, and then I'd walk into my garden, and then I'd feel the breeze of a beautiful spring morning, and then I'd go work out, or I'd go swim, or whatever a perfect day looks like for you. Just that's just a wonderful thing to be able to hold in one's mind and work towards achieving that. So I think it'll be fun. So there you have it. This is the end of the second episode of the Age Has No Limit podcast. I want to always, and as I always do, thank you for giving 25 to 26 minutes or so of your time to this particular episode. I ask you to please share it with your friends, with your family, and subscribe. We want to keep bringing this, really inspiring content to you. And one of the ways to do that is if you subscribe. The more subscriptions we have, of course, the more interesting guests we'll be able to bring on. And hopefully some of those the idea, of course, is that those guests will further inspire you to live live a life with no limit. And again, remember to join the No Limits tribe. In a few weeks, we'll be able to share some information about how you can join the No Limits tribe. But hopefully, this episode has inspired you to really think about how you can begin to design your life. And one of the ways to do that is to be very clear about your vision about the rest of your life, or the vision for your life. All right. Well, thanks again for joining the Age Has No Limit podcast. And bye.